Bridge Club. We are the first video-based community, and I am so proud with my partner Brenda, wave your hand, that we have reached over 700 professionals already with the Bridge Club since we launched in February. So we are slowly and methodically making an impact, and I and my partner in crime could not be more pleased. So with that said, we got a great topic today. We're going to talk about the ounce of prevention. And since there's a smaller group of us, let's really engage. Turn your phone off of mute. We are a mute-free zone. And I'm so excited that Jason agreed to come back and meet with us again because I loved his content the last time. He and I've already talked, so I'm pretty geeked and excited. So let me turn it over to you, and so you can start us with our toast this morning. Dr.
Sounds good. Well, I'm just going to do a nice brief toast to jump in, but to everyone for joining, thank you. And here's to life and doing with it what we can.
Cheers. Awesome.
So I like how it looks like Jason's drinking a nice dark rye or something.
I am. It's an ale. Yeah, I mean, it's Portland and it's 5 o'clock somewhere. So in fact, in many places, it's even later than 5 o'clock. So
totally okay to drink at lunchtime. Nothing wrong with it.
hey, good point. And we're pretty much spot on. It's official now.
Gosh.
So today I just wanted to talk about the things that practices, that clinicians, that veterinary nurses and other veterinary team members can be doing to better help their clients, especially as they start on their journey of pet ownership, because I think we're missing a lot of opportunities both to educate and also to help our businesses. So, and a lot of this was predicated off of some of the studies that have been done in the field, but also some surveys that we've been doing, and I'll be sharing peripherally some of that information with you all as we go through. So just as sort of a quick head count, I know I've got a couple of vets on here. And then Marianne, is that you in the purple?
Yeah.
Sorry, and how do you fit into this? Wonderful. Sorry?
I'm a recent grad, 3 years out.
Nice. Awesome.
My CVT, and am on the brink of opening a clinic.
Awesome. Congratulations or condolences. I'm not sure, but either way, go for it. And I know Justine, obviously, I'm not familiar with VAM Squad or whoever is showing up in red.
Gina.
Oh, Gina? Yeah. She's muted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hang on. Wait, let's unmute.
Sorry, I just unmuted myself.
Yeah.
Oh,
Here,
Gina,
wait,
I
I'll
know.
even,
Okay.
there, now you can see me. No
Hello.
makeup at all.
Now I know who you are. You're no longer incognito. She's in the camo cup.
Right.
Who's VAM Squad? Just so I know who I'm talking to or with.
I am looking. It's not listed on the RSVP, so someone must have changed it. So hopefully they'll jump in and let us know. So
maybe just NSA listening in on our conversation?
Could be.
I don't know. It's going to be that exciting. Anyway, so and the reason why I asked is because, we're going to be talking about stuff in the clinic and these opportunities. And so I just want to start off with kind of talking about what we typically educate clients on in the exam room, right? Like, so that new puppy, those new kitten visits, what are we typically talking to people about? I mean, my techs and vets, if anyone wants to chime in, most of the conversations, I guess I'll start us off. Most of the conversations focus around things like parasiticides, spay neuter, microchipping, vaccines, maybe nutrition, diets, things of that nature, right?
Yeah. I'll tell you, I just was at the vet last week, and it was all about how fat my dog is, and she is. And that's okay because she needs to be right now.
And it's an important conversation to have, right? But a lot of these things, what I think we are failing to recognize in the profession and is causing us to miss some very important opportunities is that one of the things that all these topics have in common is that they're all transactional, right? At the end of the day, we're talking about products, services that we ideally want our clients buying at our practice. And even when we're talking about diet, oftentimes there's a recommendation for a prescription diet after that. So the problem with that, and these are all, the other thing that these topics have in common is that they're all very important. This is not to undermine or negate the importance of these topics because they're critically important. But if you remember back, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the 2015 Bamfield State of the Industry report, where they did all of that research looking at online conversations from, I think it was like 1 point something other million online conversations. And one of the key findings that they found is that for pet owners, a lot of their interactions with their vets are missing the mark. And people are not satisfied with the interactions with their vets because they're viewing them as transactional. You know, they're talking about the parasiticides, the vaccines. And when people think about their pet's overall health and wellness, which for them goes far beyond spay, neuter, vaccines, parasiticides, things of that nature, they're not turning to their vets. They're actually turning to their groomer, their breeders, you know, the pet stores, basically our competitors. Google, Dr. Google, huge one, right? So we're missing these opportunities to bond with them. And so again, it's not that the topics we're talking about aren't important. It's just that we need to balance them, because that's going to help us fight that competition and really solidify ourselves. And when I say ourselves, I'm not just talking about vets. I'm talking about the entire veterinary team and the veterinary practice, because it's important that they see us as a team and everybody's got a role to play. And so we need to balance these conversations. One, because these are our areas of expertise. Like, we should own these conversations. And I'll touch on some of the topics in a bit. But also because it helps to fulfill our oath, right? We swore an oath to also help prevent pain and suffering. It saves our patients' lives and it prevents suffering for them. And it helps us bond our clients. And we know that our clients want this information, right? They're counting on us to provide it, and they don't specifically search out preventive pet health and safety information because people don't know what they don't know until they realize they don't know it. And in order to prevent things, you need to be aware of them first and foremost. You can't prevent that which you're not aware of. It's not physically possible. Maybe by luck, you'll luck into it. But to figure out just how important this type of information is, so that's information that helps people avoid or recognize emergencies and illnesses early on. We have actually just finished a survey on our site where we reached over 900 dog owners and over 500 cat owners. And one of the questions we asked them was, we gave them 9 different types of information that we typically cover, as well as, 8 that we typically cover, plus 1 of information that helps prevent, recognize emergencies and illnesses. And we said, choose your top 3. Which of the top 3 types of information you want to get from your veterinarian? And on the dog side, and again, we had over 900 dog owners. So I got to look at my notes just to make sure I don't cock this up. So the type of information that helps them prevent and recognize emergencies and illnesses was the number 3 answer for dog owners. Just behind vaccines and diseases, that was number 1 for types of information, and number 2 is parasites and parasiticides. So you can see number 1 and 2 are things we're already discussing and we do a really good job about. And number 3 is the one where, unfortunately, we tend to drop the ball and we don't really focus on. It's the more altruistic, non-transactional type of information, but they want it desperately. On the cat side, it was actually even more stark, because the information to help avoid or recognize emergencies and problems and illnesses was actually the number 1 vote getter, and by a wide margin, beating out vaccines and diseases. And then number 2 is actually feeding and food recommendations. And the other ones that were possible were things like behavior, training recommendations, and a variety of other things. And I think I'm going to be sharing some links with you, Catherine, to share with the group so that you can see a little bit more about this. So it's important to highlight that this is really important information for people. They need it. We know they need it because it saves lives. It saves heartbreak. It can potentially help avoid their, the early ending to their pet ownership journey. And so we know that they need it. We know now that they want it. We know how badly they want it. And we know that we should be the ones giving it to them. So I guess I'm going to sort of launch into some things that people can do. But does anyone have any questions at this point, or have any things that they do, or other ideas about, where we could be engaging clients?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
It was not about another idea, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I was wondering, Jason, if we could, you said you were going to share some links, but could we get those statistics from your study?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're in the process of putting together a report on that survey. That's what we're calling our puppy and kitten pack survey. We're in the process of putting together that report, and that'll come out, but I can definitely share some initial findings with you. We also are just, I think, putting the finishing touches on a webinar presentation that goes over this actually in more detail and actually shares some more of those stats. So definitely.
Thank you.
Of course.
One thing that I did want to, I don't know if it's the appropriate time to mention it, is what I've been doing for my foundation, because we have a foundation, as well as in order to try to let people know what we're doing with the clinic, is mini seminars that speak to these things. We just went on putting a first aid kit together.
Yep.
Those kinds of things. And one of the things that we're planning to do in our facility is continue these little seminars at the facility to kind of to educate our clients, because that's a huge thing for me. And
that's perfect. And your facility, that's a clinic, that's a hospital as well?
It's going to be it'll be a hospital with daycare, boarding as well, and we'll be doing rehab, and eventually we'll branch out into more specialties.
Yep.
But we need to start with our basics first. But education and customer service are like top at what we're going to do. You're
going to win, and especially if you think about, so if you're doing it where you're asking them to bring their pets to, right? Well, if any of those seminars are open to the pets, you're now getting the pets in on basically social visits where they're not going to get poked, prodded, taken away from their person. Exactly. That's going to help to decrease stress. That fits in perfectly with fear-free stuff that Marty's spearheading and a lot of people are jumping on board with, which is great. You're also getting the client in there when it's not a transactional opportunity. I mean, you may be charging for these seminars. No. Maybe not. And I would say don't, because it's a loss leader, right? You get them bonded to your practice. Exactly. Yeah, they're coming to you. I think that's fantastic. So, and there's a variety of things. Sorry.
It's good to know that what we believe makes sense to everybody else too.
Yeah, and that stuff is important. And the nice thing, and I guess where I'll sort of touch on the other things that people can do, is there's a variety of things that practices can do and individuals can do in the practice that runs the gamut from labor intensive to ridiculously easy to free to a little bit more expensive but still worth it. And all of these things are investments in your business, in your practice. Because if you think back to and I don't remember what year it was, it might have been 2012 maybe, IDEX study about bonds and how bonds build practices. They showed very clearly that the consistent growers, basically the overachievers, the gunners of the practices, they grow because they believe very firmly in creating bonds with their customers, their clients. And bonds are based on trust. And it's human nature to bond to and connect with people who not just help us fix problems, right? So like my dog got hit by a car, my cat got diabetes or urethral obstruction, and you fixed them. I love you, you're awesome. But they also bond with those who help us prevent problems, right? So if we're telling them at all those kitten visits, make sure, I don't know if you're a flower fan, but make sure no true lilies wind up in your house. Be careful at Easter, Mother's Day, all these times, wedding bouquets, whatever. Just be aware, plant the seed multiple times, right? So now you're helping them avoid lily toxicity, which can be devastating, heartbreaking, expensive. Same thing with urethral obstruction. It's the primary condition that sort of got me thinking about starting Preventive Vet to really help raise awareness about UO, because it's so devastating. And we can oftentimes fix these cats, but they've suffered a lot. A lot of people wind up doing economic euthanasia. They're frustrating cases, and they're heartbreaking, because there are simple things we could do to minimize the risk, or at least help people recognize it earlier, that it's not just constipation, or that, it's not, they peed outside the box because they're pissed at you because you got a new boyfriend, or whatever it is. Like, they're suffering medically. So if we can make sure that all, especially male cat owners that are new to it, say, look, this is, if you see your cat straining in the litter box, going frequently, licking around back there, bring them in. Because it may be urethral obstruction. The earlier you get them in, the better the cost, the better the prognosis. Or make sure that you have an appropriate number of litter boxes, or make sure you've got some wet food on board, or other things to increase hydration. Make sure you decrease stress, give them environmental enrichment. So many things we could do, right? So that's critically important. I think from this standpoint, I love that you talked about the central role of education. Unfortunately, I'm finding more and more practices that are really focused on the customer experience and the role that education plays in there. But I'm also cognizant that every practice is different, right? So some practices, unfortunately, are still doing like 15, 20-minute like new pet appointments. Not really terribly workable, but there's still things that you could do within those confines. If the economics dictate that you have to do that, there's simple things that you can do. So obviously, you know, I've got a dog in this fight. I created my 101 Essential Tips client education books, which are a little bit biased, but I think they're great. But these are quick and easy. Like you can literally slip them in a puppy or kitten pack, right? Or you can take the time to highlight a tip or two when the tech rooms the new client and they're waiting for the doctor to come in, right? That leaves the house with, that leaves the practice with them, goes to their house, they read it, but you've given them this gift or sold them this gift. They remember you, it creates a bond with you. But it's not just the books. I mean, you could take the books and at every, when I gave a presentation a while back at the AVMA, I had a vet from, I think it was Louisiana, come up to me afterwards talking about it. And he was talking about, because I was talking about the role of education as being like this gift that you give people that helps to bond them. And he goes, oh, it's what we call in the South, it's a lagniappe. And I had never heard of this word before, but I've since fallen in love with it. I even know how to spell it now, most of the time. Apparently, it's like a little special gift that you give someone for them doing business with you. So like when I thought about it with him, I was like, is that like the, you know, the baker's dozen, right? Like you buy a dozen donuts, you get a free donut. He's like, sort of, oftentimes it's like a little trinket. And I guess that's what the traders in New Orleans and French Creole used to just give people, like a thank you for doing business with me. It's basically saying, I know you can do business with anyone here, any of my competitors. You chose me. My main thing is I'm going to provide you a good product, a good service, but I'm also going to give you this little token. Education can be that token. Sorry, Joy, did you have a question?
The word that you used?
I'm sorry?
What was the word you used?
Lagniappe. It's L-A-G-N-I-A-P-P-E. There I go, talking about spelling it, and I might have just messed that up. But it's lagniappe, it's a French Creole word, and I just think it's beautiful because education is free. Like we in the practice know it, and you know, it could be as simple as you want to make it, and it could be as complicated as you want to make it, and everyone has a role. You know, so one of the things I encourage people to do is at your monthly or weekly or whatever staff meetings people are having, brainstorm some pet care tips. Again, these books have 101 of them, but everybody's got their little, you know, tips or their pet ownership hacks, you know, the things that make pet ownership easy. Brainstorm those with your team and think about the opportunities for each team member, whether that be the veterinarian, the vet nurse, the customer service representative up front, you know, the kennel kids. I was a kennel kid, like the kennel kid. Give everybody buy-in, right? And just make sure, because it's for people to learn things, it takes multiple touch points. So if they're hearing about lily toxicity, if they're hearing about xylitol toxicity, GDV, the dangers of retractable leashes, right? How many people come in with new puppies and they're like, got them on the little retractable leash? We have a role to play here to say, hey, like, I appreciate you just got this. You think it's a great idea. You see a bunch of people with them, but hey, by the by, people get injured by these, pets get injured by them. They can actually create more pulling and make them a much more difficult dog to manage later on. Same thing with prong collars, you know, shock collars, like just whatever comes up. You know, you get a little French bulldog puppy come in this time of year, immediately you should be having a conversation about brachycephalic and the risks of heat-related disease, you know, and injuries. And extending it beyond the cars, because they're going to see that online, they're going to see it on social, but it's important for them to hear it from us. But even talk about it as they get older, you got to really be careful about heat, you know, walking them in the heat of the day, middle of the day, later in the day. Start making them aware of these things. And it's not a sales opportunity. None of this is a sales opportunity. Like making product recommendations. Like if someone in your office has an app that they like, or an activity tracker, or a dog that they like, or an interactive toy for a cat. Ideally, it's something you don't sell, right? I mean, it'd be nice to get that sale, but if you're giving them an altruistic, this is gonna help your pet ownership journey, or you're giving them information, this is gonna help keep you out of the ER, and throwing over to Justine, because I know critical care specialists, and I've had conversations with other emergency vet friends of mine, and Joy, I know you work in emergency. I know for a lot of emergency vets, when I talk about this and I talk about avoiding the emergency room, they think, well, maybe I get paid on production, or like that's like, we need clients to survive. You'll get them. Not everything is preventable. I am one of the most anal people in the world, and I can't prevent everything, but at least people will recognize it earlier they'll recognize the pacing and the elbow abduction from GDV as a serious emergency, as opposed to maybe they've got a little bit of indigestion, and if they're still doing that in the morning, I'll take them to the vet, and then they wake up to a dead dog. They'll recognize the straining in the litter box earlier as urethral obstruction and get them in before they're completely hyperkalemic and laterally recumbent and, you know, basically more difficult to save or more expensive, so that you're maybe more likely to be looking at economic euthanasia. And on the GP vet side, I've had GP vets say, well, you know, I still, you know, I get some emergency stuff as well. And I maybe, you know, I thank you, 5 minutes. So, you know, maybe we can't prevent everything, but the more that people are keeping their pet discretionary income, the more likely they're going to be able to do these preventative things that we want them to do, the vaccines, the dentals, the spay neuter, the lab, the monitoring tests, things of that nature. And we know from you know, our feedback we get from pet owners, some people who lose a pet prematurely, like when we do all of our awareness about pet suffocation, we've heard from countless pet owners that have literally said, I can't bring myself to get another dog. I'm devastated. Like, I think about this on a daily basis. You know, I did the right thing. I rescued them from a shelter. And then because I left a bag out, they died. They would have been better off with someone else. These are people that never jump back into pet ownership. So you're losing them as a client for life. And these things are generational. Plus, if you lose a dog, if you lose a 2-year-old lab to xylitol toxicity or to hit by a car or whatever, you've now lost conservatively 10 to 12 years of vaccinations, wellness visits, dentals. Labs love to become hypothyroid. So thyroid, you know, they love to become overweight. They love to develop arthritis. You're losing all of that revenue. Helping people prevent problems is a money maker, not a money loser. And
Hey,
it's,
Jason, can I ask a question?
yeah.
Just in terms of education, and I totally appreciate everything you're saying. And I'm just curious, obviously you can educate when a client comes into the veterinary clinic, but some of the successes that I've seen, I'm just curious if anyone has tried this, is it actually done some live video training. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you can engage, do it 15 minute, 10 minute, 5 minute, whatever, live video where your clients can listen and follow on Facebook.
Yep.
And it's a great way, inexpensive, free to educate them. They can engage and ask questions right on the spot, or it can be recorded and continued on in Facebook. So
totally. And it fits in perfectly with what Marianne was saying too about the seminars, right? Because those could be recorded.
Think of it,
And then you get more life from that. And then if you're doing it live on Facebook, you might get more Facebook followers, and therefore you've got a bit more social signals to maybe, because Facebook marketing is oftentimes part of the marketing plan for a practice. Mm-hmm. And it should be social media marketing. But all these things, is you're putting it out there, you're counterbalancing that, you know, that Banfield finding of people thinking about going to the vet as transactional and saying, hey, we're not just about the transactions. Like, the transactions are important, right? At the end of the day, we're businesses, right? But we're more than that. Like, we are with you every step of the way with your pet ownership journey, you know. And Gina, obviously with pet insurance, I mean, there's a vested interest in helping to prevent problems because you're decreasing, your loss odds. I don't remember all the terms. Yeah. So, all right. So we've got 2 minutes. I'll shut up, which is a feat unto itself. Does anyone have any other questions or specific recommendations?
I was just going to say what you guys are talking about, really, that human-animal bond, and
yes.
what at the end of the day, yes, we are businesses and we have to pay our bills and all that good stuff. But I truly believe that when a client trusts you, they truly trust that what you're doing and your recommendations are really for the best interest of the animal, and those little things come from talking to them about things that aren't necessarily something that's going to bring us in revenue.
Right, and help them avoid transactions, right? You're helping them avoid the ER, which is a big transaction. You're helping them avoid, you know, even an unplanned visit to your hospital.
Right, and people are more, and I know myself, I'm more willing to pay a little bit more for something if I really truly believe that in the long run, it's going to be best for me.
Well, and also, I mean, if you're educating them about these things and you're preparing them for future issues, it ceases becoming, even the transactional stuff, you're not selling it. Sometimes clients will come in and ask for it. Like you've prepped them for lab work at this point in time, or you've talked to that, Frenchie owner when they were a puppy and said, hey, look, if it's getting bad at some point, there's a surgery we could do to open up those nostrils. And now maybe they're coming there going, well, they're really gassy. They tire, they don't really like the heat. And you go, yeah, like we could do that. Or maybe they come in and they bring it up. Like it's all about, and when we talk about bonds, because that's kind of the buzzword in the profession, but you're right, it's trust. And especially in this day and age, you brought up Dr. Google. There's bigger threats now in Amazon. Again, when I send the link for this webinar, Amazon, there was a recent article where they're going after the whole pet ownership the pet owner relationship. They want to move beyond being a transactional site, which, I mean, we're talking about Amazon. They wrote the book on transactional, on e-commerce. They want to become an educational learning resource. And they want to build relationships with clients, because relationships means trust, and it means dollars. And it means for us, not for Amazon, but for us in our practices, it means better care. Like it means better, healthier, happier pets and people and pet ownership. And that's great. So
I'm going to jump in really quick and say we're at the 25-minute mark, hence the reason why Brenda put up that beautiful number. So if anyone needs to jump off, they certainly can, but we can stay on for another 10 minutes.
I'm out of here.
And he's got his beer. He's good to go.
You said anyone.
But anyone can jump off if they need to, and we will be sending those links. I do have to say, it's been interesting. So just this last week, I went into the veterinarian specifically wanting to really understand anti-anxiety medication. Really, it could have been a transactional conversation. And he pivoted away from it based on the questions that he asked me. And he and I were really having a robust conversation. And he said, okay, let's really break this down, and started asking me questions. And he said, I have to be honest with you, no drug's going to help that.
Right, right.
But what I can tell you is, he said, you could do some behavior. He goes, the reality is, because my dog has a visceral relationship with my front door. Only the front door, no other door. People can come in, and he finally just goes, just don't let people come in the front door.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what? He could have turned.
Avoidance is important.
Let's do a full assessment. Let's do all this. And he didn't. He was very genuine and very kind, and was just like, I just don't think it's going to work for you. I think you'll be disappointed, and ultimately it's going to not be good for her. So, and I appreciated it so much.
Yeah.
Because I was ready to walk out of there with another prescription.
Right. Right. Well, and unfortunately, like I mentioned, the 15-minute appointments, unfortunately, because especially when the recession hit, and I think a lot of practices were trying to figure out ways to get more revenue when they probably had decreasing visits, or people were a little bit tighter, as far as being able to spend discretionary income. A lot of practices moved to shorter appointment times, and, appointments are always running late. People are running, clients are running late, or maybe the pet is not necessarily cooperative, or you're running late. And I think it's a bummer, because, more time means more education, but there's also ways to provide education with limited time. And certainly I think if you've built a trust-based bond, a really strong bond with a client, and they know definitively that you're not after the transaction, you're not after the sale, you are after the overall health and safety of their pet, they're not going to your competitor. They're not turning to the pet store. They're not turning, I stumbled upon an article from a pet store industry trade magazine later last year or whatever. I wrote an article on LinkedIn about, they're encouraging pet stores to share education, because it helps to build bonds and gets clients to think about the pet store first when they have questions. I was like, no, that's the exact opposite place where we need to go. But it highlights the importance, so many data points to highlight the importance of what this type of education, preventive education, awareness, can help to grow that trust, that bond, which then grows the business, increases job satisfaction, and provides for a better lifelong care and a longer life of lifelong care, and happier people. So
I think another part of that is I've always tried to marry holistic medicine with allopathic medicine. And I truly believe that there is a place for both sides. And one of those things is when you're talking to your owners, my point to them is, I'm going to give you both sides of the argument.
Right.
And I want you to make the decision based on your personal beliefs and goals. And I think people are much more open then when you do that, because you're not being one-sided.
Right.
You are
You're giving them.
This is what's out there. This is what either the study is or the science is, or this is anecdotal. Understanding that, but just know that this is what's there. You make your decision based on the facts, not on just something you think you hold.
Well, and you need client buy-in on any treatment plan, whether it be, you know, whatever it is. You need client buy-in. They need to be able to do it. They need to be believing that it'll work, but also open to the idea that it may not, whether that's traditional or holistic, and then reevaluate. Because while veterinary medicine is very much a science, it's also very much an art, and it's also very much dependent on what the clients are able to do logistically, physically, financially, all of those things.
Right.
And it's really important to just kind of have them there, but also to guide them. I mean, they're paying us for our expertise, our experience, but also to be listeners. And I think that's an area where a lot more people in practice can do a better job. Time would make that easier, but listen. I mean, you know, one of the things I always recommend to people is when you're in those appointments is ask them, you know, we always talk about asking open-ended questions, but ask the random questions. Like, you know, do you have any travel coming up with your pets or without your pets? You know, are you planning on moving soon or doing a renovation? Are you planning on hosting the holidays? You know, do you have kids that come over? Like, are you getting ready to have a baby? Or, you know, I guess maybe you can't ask that because of HIPAA or whatever, but, you know, do you have like nieces and nephews or grandkids that come over frequently? These are opportunities it's opportunity spotting, but you're not opportunity spotting to sell them something that you might wind up, right? I mean, if they say they're getting ready to have a baby, now your parasiticide conversation takes a little bit more priority, and maybe you're recommending something different, and you're going to definitely be recommending something that gives them intestinal parasite protection as well, not just flea tick, right? But if they're getting ready to do a renovation, you could start talking about decreasing stress. You could start talking about all the potential hazards, you know, builders, designers, painters, whatever, coming and going from the house. Open doors. If you've got a dog that's predisposed to bolt, Catherine, if you've got a dog that's like crazy about the front door, you can start having that conversation. Joy as well. Like, these are conversations. And even say, like, if you've got a yard fence, make sure there's a sign on the fence, on the gate, that says, please make sure this is closed because I've got a dog that might bolt. Like, you're inserting yourself into their life beyond your exam room, right? You're saying, like, 365 days of the year, you have a dog, 366 in a leap year. You have this dog, you have this cat. You come see me, if all's going well, you come see me once a year and maybe twice a year. But I'm here for you. Me and my team are here for you all of those days. And you're implicitly, you know, you're saying, without saying it, you're saying, look, don't go to the pet store. Don't turn to your groomer. Like, there's definitely questions that you could ask the pet store and the groomer and all that stuff. But like, we are your resource. Come to us first. Like, yeah, okay, if we're not open at 2 in the morning, you got a question, call the ER, maybe you're gonna go on Dr. Google. And actually, that's another thing. They did some preliminary studies at University of Tennessee Vet School and Colorado State, where they were talking about what are called information prescriptions, where people want information. And this is more about like the disease that they've just been diagnosed with. They want vets and vet teams to be giving them reliable sources because they're going on Google. Like, you diagnose their cat with hyperthyroidism, they're going home, they're Googling it. Make sure that there increase the likelihood they're going to get to a reputable source, like a veterinary school or a otherwise reputable source. Give them those sites because you're not always open, you know? And so be there for your clients where they are and when they need you, and they will love you that much more. And they will stick with you. And again, that becomes generational. A lot of kids go to the same vet that their parents went to. If they live in the same town, they'll make recommendations to their friends and family that live in town. A new neighbor moves into town with a pet. Hey, you've got a pet. Who do you use? Do you like them? Oh yeah, let me tell you, I love my vet. Well, why? Well, because they're great at medicine, if they recognize that, but because pardon my French, they give a shit. Like, they care. They've helped me avoid so many, like, I know people, I go to the dog park, I'm the smartest owner there because I'm telling everybody else about xylitol or pet suffocation or, you know, whatever it might be, you know, heat stroke awareness. That's how you build bonds. That's how you get recommendations. And that's also how part of the way you help counter those, you know, potentially negative online, you know, the Yelp, Facebook, Google reviews. You know, I mean, we're being told time and again, like, you as a hospital don't jump in and dignify them with a response typically. But if your other clients are like, hey, no, you don't, that's, my vet's got my back. Like, I've been with them and this is why. You've got people that are really psyched about you and your team. And that's great. And we all got into this to help people and their pets. And if you're helping people and their pets, I mean, we don't like euthanizing pets that we could have saved, or hearing about pets that died prematurely because of something that could have been prevented. So there's job satisfaction. You know, I'm not going to say it's going to save the world of burnout, but it can help.
Yeah,
You know?
and every little thing that we can do
Totally.
makes the world better. So
Yeah.
I'm looking at the time. I know. Is it just us?
No, yeah, now we're at our time. So what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and if you've got any, you know, feel free to connect with him. I mean, you can make sure.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm really excited about finding this, about finding you guys, because, you know, I've been an animal lover all my life. I've been in the medicine. I've been on the business side of things for 30 years, not in different kinds of businesses. Now I'm on the medical side of things, and trying to pull all that together is a daunting task.
Yeah.
And it's great to know that there's somebody else out there who shares my thoughts and desires and wants to make veterinary medicine better.
Well, there's a very strong business case for preventive education. There's a very strong business case for a lot of what gets discussed on the Bridge Club. You know, I mean, it's when we pull ourselves out of the clinic and realize that the world is much larger than the four walls that we spend way too many hours in, everybody benefits.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. So with that, we're going to wrap it on up. So Mary, as you were just learning about us, because this is your first Bridge Club, correct? Okay, so just to give you some pieces here, we allow free for everyone to come to this. We just ask that you pre-register so we can update you, but we only provide the videos of our conversations to all access members. So if you feel that you become an all access member, you can join on our website, or if you have other great topics that we should bring forward, please let us also know. But the Bridge Club is definitely, it's the first video-based community, and what you're seeing here for the first time is this idea of true collaboration and understanding in a dialogue versus, as Brenda likes to say, the bad word is what word, Brenda?
Well, oh, it's not a webinar.
There you go. In fact, we had a conversation about that today.
About having a conversation, it is not a webinar.
It is not a webinar. So, all right, guys, have a fantastic day. Cheers to everyone. Enjoy your beer.
Oh, no, I'm empty.